Haydad here, Will East in Studio X, and joining us now on the Farm Bureau guest line. Go to favorites.com and go with the home team. Zach Berry of the Ole Miss Spirit, which, of course, if he works for the Spirit, means he works for the deplorable, the loathsome Ben Garrett. I'm so sorry about that, Zach. My apologies. But happy holidays to you. When we talk about Ole Miss and the transfer portal, man, you know as well as I do, nobody better at it than Lane Kiffin. He's really mastered this process. When you look at where Ole Miss is now with the commitments that they have, how does it compare to the past couple of years? Are they in the same kind of pace? Are they a little ahead, a little behind? Where are they?
Yeah, happy holidays, fellas. I think right now Ole Miss is on pace. I went back and looked a couple weeks ago, and outside of the first year, Ole Miss took, I believe, at least 20 in the other cycles in the transfer market. So you got to replace a lot after this season. You're obviously going to have a brand-new quarterback. The running back situation, obviously you could do a whole show on that one, but they got to add more there. They really like the high school signee, Chicago Mills Knight, and then they grabbed Keelan Lacey, but a lot of question marks with Logan Diggs and how healthy he will be. So Ole Miss is still in search of a running back. But, yeah, they're on pace right now. I think it's been a very calculated approach this cycle in terms of being very selective and sticking to we use the term allocate resources a lot. And I think Ole Miss has scouted and evaluated and decided on what each position, the value of each position. And I think last year in the cycle, there were a couple that they got off that number, and they might have overpaid. And I think there were some there wasn't a lot of ROI last year on a couple guys, but this year I think they're being a little more patient. And then with the new playoff format with 12 teams, there's still a lot of teams that are still playing, and there are almost certainly going to be guys off of those playoff teams that are going to get in the portal.
Yeah, we've been talking about that. We're saying that the tail is longer on this transfer portal window than others because we're going to have so many teams getting in and getting out late. When you look at Ole Miss, and where they've brought in players at this point, there doesn't seem to be they feel like they've done a good job of filling their needs. Right? They've got a few linebackers in there. They've got some spots to replace there. Wide receiver is going to be a spot where you're trying to replace a Trey Harris and trying to replace a Jordan Watkins. Running back, we'll talk about that in a little bit more depth. They've got a couple of edge guys in. What's been like the spot where they focused thus far, where you feel like they've been the most successful? Who do you like the most of these early commitments?
Yeah, I think you hit it there with the importance of linebacker and wide receiver. Trey Harris, when he was healthy, I thought that he was as good as anybody in the SEC, and he was definitely in the running for the Biletnikoff before he was hurt. But you mentioned linebacker. I think that's big. I think there was some cautious optimism, but I think a lot of the folks around the Ole Miss program thought there might be a chance Paul would come back. He is going pro, so they really needed to hit linebacker hard. They went out and got a really athletic guy in Taj Chambers from Missouri State, former wide receiver that has picked up the trade of linebacker now, so he's long and athletic and can run. Andrew Jones was one of the most highly sought-after guys in the portal from Grambling. Originally committed to South Carolina and then flipped to Ole Miss. He was a tackling machine at Grambling, and he's one of those get-off-the-bus first guys. And then Jaden Yates from Marshall is another guy that made a lot of tackles. But at wide receiver, I like what they're doing. And, we mentioned allocating resources properly. They were after Dane Key from Kentucky, and then they were also after Eric Singleton. Both of them had some pretty high numbers. And the staff kind of decided, hey, this is what we're offering as far as NIL, and we're going to stick to it. And we're not going to try to go back and forth. So there's been a lot of speed dating with that. But I like the addition of Dejon Strembling. Put up big numbers in a really bad Oklahoma State offense that really struggled this year, and he still was able to put up some big numbers. He's the big body, I think, that's going to step in at Trey Harris's spot. And then I like the most recent addition with Deuce Alexander from Wake Forest, a versatile guy that can put in the slot next to Caden Lee, who really emerged as the go-to guy once Trey Harris went down this year. So still a lot of work to be done, but I think that there are still some positions of need that they need to focus on heading into the spring period.
All right, you hit on it a minute ago with the running back situation. Justice Haynes was the guy that Ole Miss was after. He's going to go to Michigan. Fluff Bothwell was the guy Ole Miss was after. He's going to end up at Mississippi State. What's the next target for Ole Miss at running back? And, something we talked about all year on this show, and I know you guys talked about it on your message board, the Bentley situation and the way that Lane Kiffin handled that. Is that something that's being used against Ole Miss right now?
I don't know that for certain. I haven't been in those rooms, obviously, so I don't know what other teams are saying. I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, it's all over the internet. When there's a running back that's linked to Ole Miss, and some of the first couple replies to the tweet are, hey, do you want to go over there and ride the bench? So it's a weird situation. I mean, you mentioned my colleague Ben Garrett. He pressed Lane Kiffin about it, and he finally gave him an answer. And nobody really knows. It was a weird deal, but I mean that wouldn't shock me if other teams are using that. But they were able to grab Kewan Lacey, who they really wanted out of high school.
I remember that
2 cycles ago. He looked all but going to sign with Ole Miss, and then Missouri steps in late. He goes there. So honestly, it's an unproven duo because Lacey didn't play a lot at Missouri, but the Chicago Mills Knight kid from Baylor School in Chattanooga that Ole Miss signed, they think he's legitimately special. They think that he's a guy that's going to play a lot in 2025, and it's a lot to throw at a true freshman to come in and play running back in the SEC. So they're still going to have to add some more guys. I know there's a couple JUCO targets out there, Wayshawn Jordan and Trey Hall, both junior college. Wayshawn Jordan's from Hutchinson up in Kansas, and then Trey Hall played at Mississippi Gulf Coast. So they're still out there. I don't know where on the pecking order. In my opinion, they're probably going to be below the Power 4 G5 guys. So the thing that's crazy, guys, that my colleague Pete Nakos does a really great job of is he makes sure to report when guys sign, because the commitment obviously doesn't mean anything. Yeah. And then signing still doesn't really mean anything because you're just, the school is tied to you. You're not tied to the school, so you can bail whenever. But these commitments don't really mean anything, right? Until you show up and you're physically in a classroom, these recruitments aren't over. So there are probably some other targets out there that have committed to another school that Ole Miss is probably still talking to, or waiting to see what happens. But running back is a big one because with Diggs having 2 knee surgeries, you don't know if he's going to return to that form of when he was at Notre Dame or when he was at LSU. And then you lost a couple guys to the portal, and then obviously Bentley exhausted his eligibility. So they got to add at least 1. I think the staff would like to add 2 so as not to throw too much at the true freshman Mills Knight.
When you look at the quarterback position, we haven't seen a whole ton of Austin Simmons, but what we saw was very, very impressive. How does Ole Miss work the portal for a quarterback? Are they going to go after a guy who can compete with Simmons for the starting job, or do they want to try to go the Spencer Sanders route again and have an experienced backup who's there if you need him, but it's going to be Simmons from the jump?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about somebody that the staff is excited about. And he's already taken over the leadership role that Jackson Dart had when he was quarterback, when he was helping them recruit in the portal. Austin Simmons has been doing that. I mean, he's the guy, like you said. I think they're going to have to go after either an older guy that is experienced and just kind of looking for maybe one last payday, to be honest, and then maybe get some valuable experience, playing with Lane Kiffin to maybe utilize for some coaching jobs down the road. But it's either got to be that, or it's got to be a young guy that can come in and learn the system and then compete with, Austin Simmons and A.J. Maddox a year later. So that's kind of my thought is that's what it is, and that's a tough sell, right? I mean, you saw the guy from Bo Pribula from Pitt State.
Yeah,
he left the team early. Everybody was giving him hell for it, and hey, he didn't want to do it, but with the way things are right now, he's got to get in the portal to start talking to people because he wants to go play. He wants to go start. And that was a non-starter, no pun intended there. But with Ole Miss, you're not going to come in and it's not that he wants it handed to him, but Austin Simmons is there. I mean, that's going to be tough. So he's wanting to go somewhere where he can compete and have a legitimate shot at starting. So that's a really, really fine thread to, you put that thread through that needle there with how you're going to recruit that. So that's why Lane Kiffin gets paid all the money he does, right?
Yeah. Got about 30 seconds left, Zach. Tell me what's the one position once the dead period ends that Ole Miss has to find a top-tier player?
I think it's got to be running back. It's got to be someone that can come in and make a difference day one. Right there with that, I would say offensive line. They struggled as a group, a lot of injuries, but they got to get back to running the football. Kiffin likes to run the ball. He likes to dictate pace with the run game, and they weren't able to do that in 2024. So I would say either a legitimate offensive tackle or a really talented power 4 or G5 running back is probably the biggest need right now.
All right. Zach Berry, the Ole Miss Spirit, catching us up on the portal and all things in Oxford. Thanks, man. Appreciate your time. Merry Christmas.